This evening our speaker is Dr. Meyrick Thomas, who is a retired senior consultant in dermatology at the Salisbury Hospital. So the subject is skin. Keeps the outside out and your insides in, as the great poet said.
Thank you very much indeed. You'll be pleased to hear I have neither my local anaesthetic nor any knives. Now, there is a microphone here, but can you hear me at the back all right? Yeah, just wave if I start talking so you can't hear me. So I hope that what I'm going to talk about is of some interest. There's a bit of science, take you back to school, there's a little bit of sort of topical things that people usually used to ask me about, and then happily answer any questions as we go. So let's see how we go along. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to talk a little bit about the structure of the skin, which I hope you won't all know already. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about sun damage and skin cancer, general sort of things about caring for the skin, and just a hint at the range of skin disease that there is. There aren't many gory pics, but there are two. And there's a sort of, there may be some flash photos, as they tell us on the news. I put in a slide to begin with just to warn you, if you're a bit squeamish, to turn away now. So I just warn you that in advance. So, the structure of the skin. It'll come as a surprise to some of you, perhaps, that it's the largest organ you have. You have more skin than anything else. 12 to 15% of your body weight. It's got 3 layers. An outer layer called the epidermis, inner layer called the dermis, and then the sort of underneath layer, which is basically fat. And that's what separates, you go below that and you get to muscle and other important things. The epidermis is the bit that is repeatedly changing and renewing itself. Snakes shed their skin, don't they, once in a while? We are shedding our skin all the time. And you have no epidermis tonight that you had in August. It is totally gone. 28 days, cell born, cell falls off. In other words, the skin outer layer is regenerating itself the whole time so that it can fulfill its function. And of course it's there, it's the outermost bit, it gets hit, it gets cut, it gets knocked. So it's got to be able to regenerate itself. So it's got 1.5 to 2 square meters of it you've got, if you like to think of it in that way. It's about 1/10 of an inch thick, 2 to 3 millimeters thick. And in an average square inch, not much of your skin, you've got 40 million cells, more than 1,000 nerve endings, 60,000 pigment cells, they're called melanocytes, they're the ones that give skin its colour, 650 sweat glands, 15 sebaceous glands. Sebaceous glands are attached to hairs, they grease the hair. Go back to when we were covered in it, the grease provided the waterproofing, and we still have hair everywhere except on our lips, palms of hands and soles of feet. Even if you think you haven't got any hair, you have. It's all over. And all those hairs have grease glands attached to them. And grease glands are quite important to keep our skin greased, to keep its function working. And quite a lot of blood vessels in there, keeping the whole show on the road, because of course you need a lot of food to keep that skin regenerating itself. Well, what does it do, apart from keeping your insides in, as we heard earlier? Well, it's a cover. You've got to have something coming. It would be pretty ghastly if we all walked around with our fat visible and nothing on the outside. It's there to control our temperature. It's one of the most important bits of temperature control. Your skin goes red when you're warm. If you go in the hot bath, you can see where your high water mark was because the skin's gone red, because the blood vessels open out so they can radiate out heat. And similarly, if you're out on a cold day and you look at your hands, they've got white because all the blood vessels have gone down to retain heat. And sweat is important. You sweat so that you can evaporate fluid off the skin, again, to cool it down. It's there to protect you. It's protection against infection. The grease that comes out of the grease glands is antibacterial. The pigment cells, I'm going to talk quite a lot about pigment cells. The pigment cells are there to generate pigment to protect the nucleus of all those cells along the bottom that are rapidly dividing, generating the pigment cells, which are one every 16 or so of the cells at the bottom of the outer layer, and they deposit pigment like an umbrella over the nucleus of the dividing cells. It's the nucleus that, if it goes wrong in its cell division, has the potential to become cancerous, and it's the ultraviolet light that's one of the main drivers to damaging the DNA in the nucleus. And so the pigment is there to act as a little bit of a protection. It is a relatively modern phenomenon to think that it is sensible to take most of your clothes off, if not all of them, and lie in the sun. Men do it too. Rather pleased with himself. Problem is, it causes skin cancer. So that umbrella of pigment isn't perfectly protective. There are pre-cancerous skin conditions, which I will mention as we go on, and there are cancerous skin tumours. And the vast bulk of them, not all of them, but the vast bulk of them, are a consequence of the sun. Probably the most important from the point of view of it's the one that is potentially fatal. It's not the only one, but it is the most worrying one, and you will all have heard of it, is a malignant melanoma. And when I started doing dermatology, which was 1978, if there was a malignant melanoma that came into the clinic, everybody stopped what they were doing and went in to have a look, because they were pretty uncommon. When I stopped working 18 months ago, just as the department that I was working in, we were seeing anything up to 10 to 12 a week. There's been an explosion of about 400% between 1975 and 2008, both in men and in women, just by virtue of their attitude. It's not just the incidence, i.e. the number of cases, I'm afraid it's the death rate is going up as well. So this is the number of deaths, the rate per 10,000 of the population. It increases with age, as you would expect. And as of the last full statistics that I've been able to dig out, which was 2014, 2,500 people died in this country from melanoma. Put that into perspective, 11,500 died from breast cancer, 16,000 from bowel cancer. So it's quite a significant figure. Just what does it look like? Things that are malignant are by definition out of control. Melanoma is out of control, and so it grows in a thoroughly irregular way, and because it produces pigment, similarly to its growth in its outline, the pigment that it produces is also out of control. It's going to look irregular in its colour, irregular in its outline, and irregular in its surface. Those are all at a very early stage at which they are confined to that outer layer of the skin I told you about called the epidermis. And I also mentioned that the blood vessels are in the dermis. And as long as a melanoma remains in the epidermis, it can do no harm. Once it's got to this stage, from being flat as all those ones I showed you before are, it's now started to get lumps in it. And that means it's getting substance and it's likely to be going into the dermis, which we don't want to happen. Here are a few more, all obeying the rules of irregular in all aspects: colour, outline, surface. It can occur under nails and produce a pigmented streak in the nail, and then they start to spread out, and then they turn really quite unpleasant if they're left to grow. Sometimes it's a bit difficult telling pigment under a nail because blood can look terribly like pigment. Blood under the toenail grows out over a period of several months, and you look down and think, oh my goodness me, what's that on my big toe? These are all evidence of blood under the nail and nothing to do with melanoma. So don't always get too panicked if you suddenly see discoloration under your toenail, but it's worth getting it checked if you do. Right, so a very quick whiz through malignant melanomas, which are probably the most worrying of skin cancers, but the commonest skin cancer is a basal cell carcinoma, otherwise known as a rodent ulcer, called a rodent ulcer because it behaves like a rodent. It gnaws away at anything in its path. Fortunately, they're very slow growing. They can occur anywhere on the body, but most often they occur on the face. And they get commoner with increasing age. They form little lumps which most often bleed intermittently. Basically what happens is they grow, they outgrow their blood supply, so the surface dies off, forms a scab comes off, it bleeds a bit, heals up, grows a bit more, same happens again. So that should be a sort of little bit of an alarm bell to make you wonder. But all these, from the size of them, will have been growing for 2, 3, 4 years. So they're slow growing. And they are physically very unpleasant because they destroy, as I say, anything that's in their way. And so if it's on your nose, it will be left for long enough, it'll destroy a nose. But it is not a cause of death, other than under the most exceptional circumstances, and I have never, when I was working over 35 years, never saw anybody succumb to a basal cell carcinoma. Actinic keratosis is posh for sun wart. A keratosis is a wart, solar, actinic, it's all sun. So it's a sun wart. And this is one of the commonest abnormalities that grow on the skin as a consequence of sun exposure. They're just little rough, scaly bits. And what's happening here is that that outer layer, it's gone a bit haywire. It hasn't gone completely haywire. And so it just exaggerates what it normally does. And it's there to produce that dead layer of skin, and it just produces too much. So you get this warty roughness starts to appear. It's an indicator that that skin is damaged and that skin is potentially going to produce a skin cancer. They can get really quite big bits coming into them on their warty bits. Well, that's what can happen if you don't protect your skin from the sun. I'm sure you're all extremely good at doing that. So if we move on to skin care, we'll talk about skin care from the sun. Everybody has had sunburn. I don't believe there's anyone in this room who won't have been sunburned at some time in their life. And it hurts, doesn't it? But it is striking how much protection clothes provide. Clothes are a very good sunscreen. Same again. Outline, the bit that got the sun is the bit that wasn't covered. So the first thing to think about with sun protection is clothes. There is no such thing as a healthy suntan. So those people who come back from holiday and they're all brown, oh dear, what a bad holiday you must have had. And it is new-ish. It's a 20th century phenomenon. A day at the beach in 18-something. Long sleeves, hats, children all covered up. It's only really post-Second World War that this became the way people viewed the seaside. Get it all on. And if you just sunbathe for long enough, you get, as you've seen earlier, you may get skin cancers. But what you definitely will get are wrinkles. Wrinkles are sun damage. You do not have that sort of appearance on your bottom unless you've been exposing it to the sun, whereas you may get it on your face. This is again a relatively 20th century phenomenon for people out of doors to take their clothes off, particularly men. And it is probably a knock-on from that that is why men in their 70s and 80s are disproportionately getting melanomas, and they're getting those melanomas on their backs. Women get melanomas on their lower legs. Big generalisation, but it's very much the case that it follows that sort of a pattern. Similarly, farming. If you're farming in Western countries, America, Australia, this country, short sleeves, no hat, get out in the sun, get a bit of a suntan. If you look at other cultures, the Mediterranean, hat, long sleeves. Covered up, protecting themselves. It's only those of us who don't see the sun very often who think we need to expose our skin to it. So as I say, this appearance is due to the sun. So if you don't want to get wrinkles and you don't want to get skin cancer, don't go in the sun. So it's use an umbrella and don't sunbathe. Wear a hat, use sunscreen. Wear sunglasses, cataracts are due to UV damage. If you've got to sunbathe, do it not at the middle of the day, and do use plenty of sun cream and do keep reapplying it. Follow the Australian approach of slip on a shirt, slap on a hat, and slop on the sunscreen. It's very interesting. Sunscreen in Australia is dirt cheap. People just have it around the houses, big jars of it, unlike the expensive stuff that we have over here. People would often say to me, well, I want my vitamin D. We get plenty of vitamin D. The evidence of it being a risk factor may apply a little bit in children, but most are getting enough in their diet anyway. This is just a matter of being careful. Not deliberately seeking a suntan. If you're going to be out and about on a sunny day, put some sunscreen on. It's quite simple and easy to do, and don't take your shirts off. There's nothing to be gained by it and everything to lose. And as for sunbeds do absolutely nothing other than harm. So I urge you don't use sunbeds. The other thing to bear in mind is you don't have to be able to see the sun for the sun to see you. If it's daylight, it's sunlight. You've all heard of wind burn. No such thing. The wind does not burn your skin. It is sunburn on a cloudy, windy day. During the summer months, there's very significant UV penetration through the cloud. Put a bit of sun cream on if you're going to be out for any significant period. On that note, thank you very much for listening.